Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay.
A little background. A famine plagued Israel in the days of the judges, and in an effort to escape the famine, Elimelech took his wife Naomi and their 2 sons to Moab. While in Moab, Elimelech died, leaving Naomi and her 2 sons. The 2 sons married Moabite women, Orpah and Ruth. But remember, intermarriage between Israelites and Moabites was forbidden. The family lived in Moab for 10 years, and then both sons died childless. Naomi now was left without a husband, without sons, without grandchildren, and just 2 Moabite daughter-in-laws. While in Moab, news had reached Naomi that God had visited Israel and the famine had ended and there was an abundance of crops. So she started back to her land and her people. Orpah and Ruth were committed to returning to Israel with their mother-in-law. The 3 women had set out for Israel when Naomi began to have a change of plans. Naomi encouraged her 2 daughter-in-laws to return to their mother and family and their land because it would be in their best interest. Naomi expressed the expectation that the Lord would bless them with security in a marriage with a new Moabite husband and children. She then kissed both of them, a clear signal of dismissal. Many tears were shed, but in the end, both women refused to leave Naomi. Trying to get them to depart from her, Naomi's second effort is more forceful. She speaks honestly about the reality of not having any more sons for them to marry. Naomi does not offer much promise of a good life for these Moabite women. Ruth and Orpah knew the biological condition of Naomi, and while Naomi's words did not explicitly assert this fact, based upon her words and the knowledge of the state of affairs, Naomi inferred that these women would not likely find an Israelite husband. In fact, they would be mistreated because Moab was Israel's enemy. The only hope Naomi sees for Orpah and Ruth is the hope of finding a Moabite husband and bearing children. Naomi is saying that she is of little help to these young ladies in terms of their financial security and well-being. Not only is Naomi unable to provide these women with husbands, she asserts that God is also dealing harshly with her, and it is illogical for them to continue to have loyalty to her. As before, more tears are shed, but this time Orpah kisses Naomi goodbye and leaves. Now, Naomi's third appeal is to Ruth alone, based upon Orpah's decision to return home. As Orpah kisses Naomi goodbye and turns back, Ruth clings even more tightly to her mother-in-law. Naomi encourages Ruth to accompany Orpah as she is returning home. It would be safer for the 2 women to travel together. Now Naomi with force commands Ruth, "Look, your sister-in-law is returning to her people and to her God. Go back with her." Now, you have to pause here for a second and ask the question, how could any faithful Israelite encourage someone to return to their false gods? A godly Israelite would truly trust only Yahweh and no other God. Naomi's strong urging of Ruth and Orpah to depart her was as much for her interest as it was for theirs. Without these Moabite daughter-in-laws, she would not face the public scrutiny of going home with daughter-in-laws from an enemy land. But Naomi's strong words prompted an even stronger profession from Ruth. First, Ruth insists that Naomi must cease urging her to turn back, and then she states her unconditional commitment or love for Naomi, for Israel, and to Israel's God as a covenant. She clearly promises, "I will go where Naomi goes, live where Naomi lives." Naomi's people, Israel, would be her people, and Naomi's God, Yahweh, would be her God. Ruth would not only do this until death separated them, she would do so in death. She would be buried where Naomi was buried. Not even death would separate them. And in good covenant form, she pronounced a curse upon herself if she did otherwise. No wonder Naomi finally ceased trying to convince her to turn back in verse 18. This relationship was not based upon DNA or blood. It was not kindred. It was not race. It was not financial security. After all, Naomi was in a bad financial situation herself. We see here unconditional commitment, the same commitment God has for us and that we should have. As modern Christians, we must love no matter what may come. Unconditional commitment brings satisfaction from putting someone else first and prioritizing their happiness with no expectation of reward for ourselves, no matter if they are good or if they are bad. Ruth stays committed to Naomi even with the bad advice to go back to a false god. God loves us so much that he gave us his son because we were sinners, loving us even through our sin. That's the lesson for this week. Have a great week. Bye.